If you're behind on your car loan, sadly, you're not alone. Car loan rates and repossessions have been going through the roof, and it's only going to get much, much worse. The latest statistics shows the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau states that the numbers are skyrocketing. We haven't seen things since 2019 to 2020. The increase in numbers of repossessions have gone up to about 22.5% from those 3 short years. Then unfortunately from 22 to 24, it's gone up yet another 23% year over year. Strong indications that people are losing their shirts, they're giving up their cars, and they strictly can't afford to pay for their new cars. What's even worse is I came across an author of a recent video who actually showed a lot of the repossessions are not with the kind of cars that you would expect. Most of you probably assume it's Range Rovers and Audis and BMWs, but you'd be wrong. The vast majority of a lot of these cars getting repossessed now are 2,000 mile to 20,000 mile Toyotas, Lexus, Hondas, the garden variety family haulers, vehicles that people were buying, minivans, small SUVs, strictly to get their families around. Now, we know that there was a time when people were getting it over their heads, and due to social media platforms showing them what they needed, making people feel warm and fuzzy, and you probably felt that way. I feel that way. The big marketing wheel is a very powerful thing, and it has a lot of influence on a lot of us. Unfortunately, some of us get succumbed to the numbers. And that being said, you get pulled into the vortex. A lot of us can't say no to the dealer. The dealer says, here, you want to take this one for a ride? You go for a drive, you fall in love. Next thing you know, you're signing on the dotted line for a car loan that looks something like 84 months. Worst part is 20% of the population taking out loans these days are taking them out for over $1,000 a month. This is absolutely earth-shattering. I can't believe the cuffs of our pants that people are reaching over to grab these days, because this is what's starting to happen. Because the vast majority of people that are taking out car loans today are feeling the squeeze. Even if you're not a person that's going to have your vehicle repossessed, the fact remains is the average numbers of dollars owed upon that date of repossession is still $11,000. So even if you buy a car for say 30 or 40 grand, there's a good chance you still owe 25 to 30% of that vehicle. Most people aren't getting out from under the water, and clearly negative equity is a big impact. People often find themselves rolling negative equity from a lot of their previous buys into the next buy, and that puts them even in a much harder strain. See, this is something that's been going on since at least 2020, when we saw these chip shortages, microprocessor shortages. Then, of course, we had vehicle shortages, and a lot of people wanted their cars because the government were throwing money around like it was going out of style. With that said, people just continually decided to buy. They were going to justify, you know what, I'm going to go back to work. And around 22, 23, most people started to have to go back to the office. And as a result, they couldn't go back in their old clapped out, 12-year-old Toyota. They wanted to go back in style. So a lot of people took a lot of those government handouts and decided, you know what, I'm going to buy some of that. It won't pay for it, but it'll certainly put down as a deposit for their next new purchase. But this was happening at an absolute crazy and insane level. And honestly, I can't blame people. You sit around for 2 years, staring at the paint on the walls and watch as it dries, hearing all these mixed reviews and all the things going on in the world. A lot of people need that sense of escape. They wanted that sense that they just need to get away from all of this. And a new car is just what the doctor ordered, because the marketing machine is absolutely powerful. And everywhere you look over there, there's Lincoln selling you on a celebrity. There's Ford telling you how you need to get this truck because it's going to do all your hauling duties. There's Hyundai telling you how you can go off-roading, and Jeep telling you you can go down the backwoods and enjoy some time alone. And they all find these romantic ways to sell these cars. The unfortunate part is a lot of people are stretched beyond their means, and shortly after signing on the dotted line, many people find themselves succumbing to the pressures of life. Increased costs of housing, food, all of that is taking a toll. And when the bank man comes knocking, or the repo guy comes knocking, they have some hard decisions to make. Do they need their brand new car that they're making $1,200 a month payments, or they need to feed their little kids, of course, put the medicine in their mouth, pay for new shoes for school, and keep that roof over their head because rent's due and they're already a month and a half behind? What are the priorities today? A lot of people are making those decisions. And a lot of times, many people believe that it was the supercar buyers, those people that were taking extraordinarily long loan terms out, But what we don't realize, a lot of people did default in those environments, but also a lot of people took out shorter term leases, pay $5,000, $6,000 a month, and basically realized really quickly that they couldn't continue making those payments. Fortunately, a lot of those lease terms were short term and they could walk away in short order. But the unfortunate part is a lot of people were getting in over their heads for very long loan terms with very high monthly payments. On top of that, of course, rising insurance costs, increasing inflationary pressures that we're seeing everywhere. There's no relief in sight. And now people, after all of the glitz and glamour shines come and worn off the vehicle, after there's the first few rock chips and a few McDonald's French fries fall between the seats, it no longer feels like that new vehicle anymore, and it's sort of lost its luster. So when the bank man comes knocking and says, we want our money, the priorities start kicking into high gear and people realize, I can't afford it, I gotta let this go. And when people really start to realize and actually crunch the numbers, because unfortunately a lot of people, they see the shiny car, they don't think logically. They often just put that aside and say, I want that shiny new red paint, I love this car. So they dispute the fact or don't even care about the fact that they've just signed up for a car loan that looks like an average of 7.3% on the new car market or as much as 11.5% to 13% on the used car market. That's an extraordinarily high number. And when we look at the conversation about depreciation and the sheer loss that people are going through, they start running the numbers in their mind, but it unfortunately comes a little too late. I mean, when we think about one of the worst expenditures, obviously is a new car purchase. Now, new cars are always great if you can buy them cash or a very short loan term. There's always a place for a new car. However, when you think about the average car price these days at $50,000, almost push based on Edmunds statistics, we're pushing the threshold of $50,000. Then on the average loan term with incorporated rates, now you're at $64,000 over a 5-year loan term. Well, after that 5-year loan term, 64 grand for that $50,000 vehicle. Now, 5 years later, it's only worth $29,000. Now, lo and behold, you've lost $35,000, $40,000 in depreciation. How can anybody swallow that? So you buy that new car, and in 5 years, you basically said bye-bye to 40 grand. And that's after tax earnings. Before tax, you're at $60,000, $65,000, $70,000. Now people start to look at this, oh my God. After 2023, they realize, what kind of mistake have I just made? I just signed up for a $40,000 hit. And that's what it's going to cost me to borrow this car for the next 5 years. And they start to realize that we never really own anything. The cost of repairs on a lot of these complex vehicles is going to take me out of slam me. And clearly people are starting to realize that they don't have the money to maintain these new, highly technologically advanced cars. But most importantly, it's the depreciation that really starts to hit home for people. When they look at before tax earnings, they've just spent an entire salary on the new vehicle. That's right, an entire salary gone, bye-bye. So now more people are saying, you know what, I'm going to get while the getting's good. Maybe get that vehicle gone. If the repo man comes knocking, I'll take a hit on my credit score. But you know what? I can't afford to do this anymore. And as a result, a lot of people are looking at their finances now and deciding, we're not getting relief, even though there was a small drop in the Fed rate and a small drop in the Bank of Canada rate recently. That's just not enough realistically to make any sizable effort or changes or impacts in a positive way for buyers' lives. And as a result, they signed up 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago when interest rates were much higher. And now they're looking down the barrel of something that maybe has been slightly trending downwards. Now they're saying, you know what, I signed up for 11% interest, but I could probably get that same car now for 8%, 7%. And now people are regretting their purchases. Along with the regret comes the sense of, I just got to default. I got to get out of this some way, somehow. And in some cases, they're asking forgiveness. In some cases, they're actually literally walking into the bank and handing over the keys and saying, look, either we work something out or you can have it. I'm just going to give you the keys. I just need forgiveness here. Somebody, I need a break. But this unfortunately is getting out of control, and repossessions are rising. We're seeing this 22% for a couple years. Again, the last couple years we've seen an additional 24% increase. What does 24 to 26 look like? At the current trajectory with people at those high interest rates signed up for a couple years ago, there's a good chance we're going to continue seeing that trajectory. 22, 25, 28% increase probably over the next 2 to 3 years based on what I'm starting to see. On top of it, the escalating prices of these cars and the longer loan term just sets even more people up for failure. Remember, if you're buying a car for $5,000 and you default, no harm, no foul. But if you buy a $100,000 car and default, that's going to have a major impact on your livelihood, your expenditures, and your budgets probably for the next 10 or 15 years. It could take you years to recover from that default. But this is what's going on, and more people, sadly, are succumbing to this default market. And even more so, things got alarmingly interesting when we saw a couple of years ago, Ford decided they wanted to pull a patent for an auto repossession technology. That's right, they were going to start to incorporate, it hasn't been done yet, but all these OEMs are starting to look at opportunities to almost automate a process at which you default. These automated application and hardware in the car will automatically engage your vehicle, back it out safely, and park it in a position where the tow truck driver can come and safely pick it up off the street, or that vehicle can automatically drive itself in auto mode down to its local auction yard, whatever it is, whatever that housing facility is to hold those vehicles until it goes to auction, so that it can be auctioned off to recoup those funds for the bank. Yes, even some of this technology is being looked at right now. Ford has challenged that. They want to pull a patent. Since then, they sort of retracted slightly, but it's sending all kinds of messages that not only are we seeing rising dramatic levels of repossessions, but the OEMs, as bad as they are at convincing you need your next new car, they conversely are protecting their own investment by looking at what kind of technology they can now incorporate to take that vehicle back at the drop of a hat when you're not making your payment. Don't forget to check out that right there. Honestly, it's going to tell you everything you need to know, everybody. Hope to see each and every one of you real soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.